sign PPAs with the state governments. In some states we have seen, because we had been funding projects and the PPAs were being signed at the end of after commissioning. But now we realize that 2 or 3 projects that we have funded in wind, there could be an issue of signing of PPAs. So I would request those states to look into this, because otherwise lenders will lose confidence and then they will wait for the PPA and projects will not move. So that is another thing. Then of course, sir, for a lot of 22 states have come out with the net metering policy, and that will help rooftop to be taken up in a big way. And of course, the enhancement of cess from rupees 50 to 200 would help in incentivizing and coming out with good policies, because then the ministry will have around 12,000 crores every year for incentivizing and promoting renewable energy projects. So I'm sure renewable energy projects will, the pace of growth in renewables will continue with the help of all states and all the stakeholders. Thank you.
Tarun Kapoor ji had a busy schedule, so he wishes to go. So we have a small memento for him. A small application. And may I request Hetal to please give it to him. Kapoor sir. Thank you once again, Kapoor sir, for being with us, sir. I have my friend, Mr. S.C. Sharma. I see him out there, and I would request him to please join us on the dais. S.C. Sharma, former director, TERI. Please come over, sir. I have also to recognize 2 gentlemen who have come from Surat, and we just discussed land bank. The people who have a lot of land bank right there, they were interested in the area of solar and other issues related to renewable energy. It is Nilesh Gajera and Kamlesh Gajera. May we have them? Can I see them? Please give them a big hand. They come to understand, and they are one of the, we want encouragement for people who have capability to look at investment, to look at land banks. So this whole issue can change, and we're happy that to have them here today with us. Thanks to Hetal, the initiative that he has taken to call them, and we are very happy to have you here. And I can assure you that after this forum, we can have one-to-one discussions. There is a lot of opportunity out here. Thank you once again. May I request Sri V.K. Garg, our co-chairman for the day, to say a few words on today's award, sir.
Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I heard the lectures and the response of the awardees. I feel power is a never-ending story, endless story of a bottomless pit, where you go on putting money on money. And this is one business model where the more you produce, the more you lose. So, a wonderful, unique model. And after the latest coal auction, where you say, I'll give you power, and I'll give you coal, and I'll also give you the money on the top of it. So I'm yet to come across a business model of this type. And in this endless desert, power desert, I find the renewable energy, and especially the solar, as a solace, so long as it does not prove to be a marichika. That is, as we get nearer, we find it moves further. And for that, 2 basic things are required. One is the funding and the readiness, acceptance, and willingness of the bankers to fund the solar projects. The banker is little hesitant because of the reason there is no empirical data on the solar cells that are being manufactured in the country or being imported, either from China or from United States. This lack of empirical data leads to lack of confidence in the banker and is one of the major stumbling blocks. The projects that are being put up are mostly on the strength of the PPA with the state DISCOM, that money will come not today but tomorrow or day after. Some of the DISCOMs are in a position to pay, some are not. There it is accumulating as an outstanding and a regulatory asset. once the RPO gets implemented across the country, this will get a big boost. But one issue which needs to be addressed, Tarun has left, otherwise I would have put this question across to him, that the solar and renewable were introduced with the premise that the consumer will pay a part of it, and a part will come as a support from MNRE or from the government. Today, none of the budgets of the central government and the state governments, I find that component between 4.5 rupee and the price mentioned in the PPA, how is that going to be met? And in fact, in how many cases it is being paid? It is just getting accumulated. And it is getting something like a bubble, as in the thermal generation. The loss of the DISCOMs is around 2 lakh crores today. And I talked to two important states. One has outstanding and losses of 90,000 crores and another has 60,000 crores. And I was talking to them and try to listen to understand how they are trying to do the restructuring. So this 2 lakh crore bubble of the thermal, after 3 or 4 years, there will be a similar bubble on the solar power tariff and its payment. Therefore, what is important is A, the technological auditing of the product that is being produced, that is being imported, that is being installed. The cuff factor, which is being mentioned in the project reports, one after the others. I was shocked when I came across cuff at 24%, 22%, and the finance are accepting it. Whereas effectively, there is no country-wise atlas of cuff which can give the banker a level of confidence that for this, so many million units will be generated. So these are 2 or 3 things, gentlemen, which I feel needs to be done. And if they are done, then yes, the effort that are being made, the goals that are being put will be a great success. Otherwise, after installing 1 lakh megawatt, we would again be confronted with a bill of almost 2.5 to 3 lakh crores to be paid by the taxpayers. Thank you.
I think Popli Saab would like to respond to those 2 points, and that Garg Saab has raised. Very valid points, right, sir?
Sir, what has happened recently is the polls has increased from 100 to 200. So the government will have around 12,000 crores per year. And 7,000 crores is already approved for viability gap funding. And that will go to Solar Energy Corporation of India. So they will subsidize between 450 to 550, whatever it is. So 1 rupee or 150, whatever scheme they finally come out with. In addition to that, sir, NTPC will come out with 15,000 megawatt. That will be through bundling route. So the ultimate burden, I mean, notionally it will not be on them. Eventually they will be buying thermal and of course. And sir, the third thing is, I was thinking on the terms of how solar is going to affect the utilities, but we have a large solar pumping program, sir. And once the states try to implement solar pumping programs, sir, I think their agriculture losses and the grid stability will improve rather than it going the other way. And we had a program, 1 lakh pump sets are to come, and so the agriculture feeder and the subsidy that goes for agriculture, because almost 28 to 30% power is consumed by agriculture. So I think this renewable in a way might improve the health of the utilities, because sir, the rooftop program that will be around 40,000 megawatt, that will go only where per se the power from the rooftop is cheaper than the commercial or industrial rate at which they are buying. So 40,000 go like this. Therefore, I feel that this is, and the cost for solar is coming down. So I am sure this is going to help the utilities and help the stakeholders.
Right, sir.
This is what
As far as the cost is concerned, I said one point that we must have a system of audit of the efficiency of the equipment that we are installing.
Absolutely.
And our payment and emphasis should be linked to number of units generated rather than the capacity. In wind initially, the capacity was installed because of the investment allowance. Then I found that the generation is hardly there. Then I wrote to Mr. Subramaniam, then the Secretary MNRE. And I wrote to him, I said, instead of linking the investment allowance to the capacity, you link it to the generation. And that is how the generation-based incentive came. And with that, the generation by the wind units came. Otherwise, they were just being installed for the sake of claiming investment allowance. Similarly, in the solar, what I feel, one is the technical audit, and second is you can do that thing, have the solar agriculture pump manufacturers, call the solar solar agriculture irrigation pump manufacturers, the bankers, the state government together, and ask them to share the risk, and it is the saving in the electricity which would pay for the cost of the pumps. And the government can give a partial guarantee to the extent that if the pumps perform, energy is saved, the benefit will be passed on to the pump suppliers, manufacturers, and the bankers.
Right.
That is second way. Third thing, you mentioned about the viability gap funding. Viability gap funding is provided only where there is no regulator. And the regulator does not give the cost of service. Here the tariff is being determined by the regulator, and the cost of service, it is so fixed, the tariff is so fixed that it covers the cost of service. So therefore, the viability gap funding legally is not sustainable for a sector where there is a regulator to fix the tariff to cover the cost of service. So this viability gap funding is going to meet a serious legal roadblock.
Right, sir. Now may I request our friend Ashwinidhar to say a few words.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, eminent panelists on the dais, professionals in the audience. You have been hearing to the policymakers who have still, hopefully another policymaker still with us. We have also a group of policymakers, even though they have demitted their office, but they still influence the policymakers. Dr. Garg is there. Recently, our Prime Minister had to go to Benares for accelerated power development program, but he couldn't go, it was raining there. And Minister made a statement that 275 gigawatt capacity is available in the country. That is a jump of almost 23,000 megawatt in 1 year. 23,000 megawatt in 1 year means all that was achieved in the whole of 8th five-year plan. So capacities are being increased, but still we find only an evacuation of 150 gigawatt. So we are at the same square zero level. Out of this 275 gigawatt, I think the solar constitutes less than 4%. Am I right, sir? We're just not talking about generation, Dr. Garg said. I was appalled in my previous company, which was a research company. There's a generation of less than 300 megawatt actually out of all the installed solar power plants in the country. So while, you know, solar has something become like that slogan, Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao. It's just a slogan. We are not serious about it. Believe me, how you can get about 1 lakh megawatt of renewable in the next 5 or so, how many years government has set for itself, when actual generation is around 300 megawatt and the installed capacity is not even 1,000 megawatt per year. Are you going to wait for 1 lakh years? I don't know. Government must be having their own answers. You know, actually, I wish Professor could have asked me to come while Joint Secretary was here, because earlier also I missed the chance because I want to ask why renewable. I mean, I don't want to use the word, but they're basically taking the nation for a ride by giving them such dreams. If you cannot focus on renewable and give us a solution, then go for intensive high-grade technology in coal. Let's not starve. The state of Uttar Pradesh is starved. I'm in Greater Noida. Every day I have a power cut of 3 to 4 hours. 275 gigawatt is in the country, and you are still, for the last 3 years, only evacuating 150 gigawatt. That means 120 gigawatt is lying unutilized. And we call ourselves a welfare state, Professor Iyer? I don't think we're a welfare state. 120 gigawatt means, at today's cost, Agrawal Sahab, please help me out, 7 lakh crores? 7 lakh crores is lying idle. Sloganeering is enough for renewable. I think decision makers and the policy makers should at least see. There are two very vivid examples. Two canals, Narmada Canal and the Satluj Canal, have been covered. Both canals together are generating about 10 megawatt, and 30% of water is being saved. We have a canal all the way from Harkipodi to Kanpur, 1,000 kilometers, double canal. That means 1,000 twice means 2,000 kilometers of canal. Why a similar approach cannot be taken up the way Gujarat did it in their state? There are so many simple ways to, really bring us on a serious solar, power map of the world. But I don't think government is more. Maybe it is becoming at one time. I mean, maybe it gets the more votes by only making it as a tool, as a slogan. Solar is exactly a dream which I don't know in my lifetime I'm going to see that it's going to achieve. Thank you.
See, I have a point. We made the 50 gigawatt solar. That pitch started from REPA. It was launched by none other than Saurabhai Patel in Gujarat, in 2012. The entire white paper became very popular. And our point was very clearly 50 gigawatt. J.K. Mehta and all these people are evidence to that fact. What happened is there was an article that appeared in ENERTIA, which the Prime Minister read very deeply. And he found that with all these bottlenecks, only about 17% renewable is still there, in terms of generation terms. So that upping the ante of renewable energy was a clear pitch. I'm giving the answer for that, why it happened. So therefore, there was no other option, because you yourself accept that in the coal mining, those fellows who have signed the 3 lakh crores, right, have bluffed our government. Right? Am I right? Yeah. Right. Right. So basically what is going to happen is, most of them, and I know the real story behind this, ENERTIA is working on that story. The story is, our friends went and said, Geological Survey of India has not given us proper data. And they have approached the court for withdrawal of all that they have signed. Now that withdrawal will become a major scam if it happens. So I don't know how it is going to be managed. At this point is the biggest thing. We are not, we as an organization are not bound to tell the lie. We are going to tell the truth. The government has to open its eyes. And not an ounce of coal will be removed if this happens. And that is the way I am saying, let's be very careful about not looking at upping the ante. And I think, in my opinion, Modi Sahab is clever. He has tried to put a challenge of 100 gigawatt. आप नहीं भी करेंगे तो 50 से 60 तो करेंगे, है ना? 50-60 पे भी मैं पीठ थपथपाऊंगा बस. And our gentlemen were here, both of them. They are very confident of 50 to 60 gigawatt. Am I right, Publi Sahab? मैं सही कह रहा हूँ कि नहीं?
In fact, sir, I mean, what you are saying is right. I mean, that was right 3 months back, 6 months back. That was right what you were saying. But a lot of things have happened in last 3 months, sir. I mean, NTPC has been asked to go for 15,000 megawatt. SECI will go for bidding of 7,000 megawatts, so 22,000 megawatts will come in next 5 years. For sure. I mean, the bids are on. The states have given us a visibility of, I think, 12 to 13,000 megawatt. Rooftop is on, sir. 21 states have come out with net metering schemes. RPO and RPO obligations will have to be met now by the states and also by the captive power generation. The green corridor is on, sir. Funding is being arranged for it. The multilateral, bilateral agencies are willing to fund renewable energy. And sir, it is not now the installed capacity for solar is 4,000 megawatt. And I have not seen much stress in any of the financial institutions on solar, sir. There are cases where the 1 megawatt or 2 megawatt projects that were put up earlier, there the grid is not available in some of the states. But otherwise, that is being taken care. And large players are coming, sir. Sun Edison has planned. You would have heard about SoftBank coming, investing $20 billion in solar. So the story is, I mean, changing.
Right.
I mean, nobody believed it, that 1 lakh megawatt can happen.
But I've got only two questions. We have 4,000 megawatt installed.
Yeah.
Why they are generating 300 megawatt?
No, it is not so. I mean,
The mic, sir, the mic.
It is not so.
Mic lena, sir.
I don't think it is. So I mean,
Sir, they are
the
not
state
operating
people are here.
more than 10% plant load factor.
No, 20% plant load factor.
I agree, sir, with 20. So that means 4,000 megawatt is
No, but
generating 800 megawatt?
that is how, sir, that is the way, I mean, that will only generate for 6 hours. Sir, the solar.
Yeah, the limitation is 6 hours because there is no battery backup. Right.
Is that the solution for the country then?
I'll tell you, okay, I have a point. See, let us look at, let's not push down solar, because one of the thing is, solar comes quickly onto the grid, right? But I tell you the real challenge today's discussion, the harmonics. That is what I will be more interested in. I would be rather interested in how will you handle multiple injection points and how will you handle the harmonics. That is the real issue, I tell you, sir. The issue is not about the 100 gigawatt. The issue is about this.
Sir, one very interesting perspective I heard day before, sir. They said, since you are promoting solar and with coming up of solar, the GDP of the country will go down because you are spending 4 times more
Oh,
and your output is less. And that has come from a very renowned economist. So I said, well, we have not thought about it.
no,
But,
sir.
well,
I don't think so.
This is the way, I mean, you can have different perspective on things. But
Yeah, but I tell you, see, solar is there to stay.
Last year we imported $90 billion of coal.
Right. That's the reality.
That's the reality.
Absolutely. So I think I want DC to say a few words on this subject, sir.
Thank you, Professor A. Of course, we have heard about the renewables and we've talked about we've given the award of the renewables. So let me limit myself only to the renewable today. Although I've worked in hydro and coal, but I still find the dream will come true only with the renewables. If we want to give access of power to everybody in the country.
Right.
If you think about coal and the investment done, if 100,000 megawatt we cannot utilize, imagine the idle investment made so far. At least for the solar, if you come to that extent, if 20% is not achieved, tough factor, 16%, still you can utilize that money, whatever you spend. In coal or gas, you are making the assets as idle.
Right.
What is the use of that idle assets?
Absolutely right.
So that is what we have to think about.
Correct.
Not on the efficiency or on the utilization.
Absolutely
But-
right.
And why we are only talking about coal all the time?
Right.
So when other alternatives are available, that is more important. Now we have to, as you rightly said about the harmonics, when other modalities are going to be injected into the grid,
Right.
we need to think how we utilize the grid and make it more stable.
Exactly.
And also if there is investment on making the grid stable and to have this several modalities injected in from several places, we need to also consider what is the benefit or how we integrate in terms of economic benefits to the producers.
Correct.
That is one. The second is on the safety. Will this smart grid or renewables bring more safety or continuation of hydro or thermal will continue to bring more safety? So combination has to be there. You bring that safety also. And then awareness to the consumer that what is good for them for living or reducing the carbon footprints. So that is a combination. It's not.
Sir, I think we'll have to put the mic, sir, up.
It's a combination, not. It's a combination, not just to be talked in isolation. That's what I would like to say.
Right, sir, thanks. And Santosh ji, you have seen today's awards, you've seen many of our functions. As a, a person who's not exactly from technical industry, but a person from media, how do you see this whole developments?
It's very encouraging.
Especially today we said some major statement we made. Out of 30 states, 10 states are on the track.
It's amazing.
So 30% of India is on the track. Not a bad idea to start with. In my opinion.
Great.
Let's give a big hand to ourselves for at least recognizing this 30% performance. It's not bad. We can go to 50%.
30%,
For sure.
30% of India is on excellence.
On excellence, absolutely right.
Wonderful, wonderful.
So let us give a big hand to ourselves for today, for
Wonderful.
having recognized those 30% who have done great work today.
I think it's a great occasion to award these people who are doing exceptionally well. And I think the story will get carried to the other states, and the
For
other
sure.
states should now come in whichever segment that they feel they belong. Solar is there for most of them, so I think, so there's a lot of good work that needs to be transmitted to everyone, all and sundry, and I am sure activities like this will take their own course. Great.
So today now, I want to now take it forward to the real challenge. The challenge is smart grid. The challenge is smart meters. The challenge is putting, I tell you 3-4 elements, I just throw this off and then leave it to Murugeshan and the chair, Mr. Vikekar, both of them to carry it forward today to explain what are the problems with this kind of new energy being injected, how the grid can be reliable, stable. We have also experts from like Kaushik sitting over there from CIAN. We have Alfred sitting over there from Ensign. I want this interaction to continue, but I just put it in front of you. Challenges is, in India there are various challenges. Harmonics is very important. It's an engineering subject, but I make it simple. It is electronic pollution, actually. Nobody has discussed electronic pollution. Other types of pollution is discussed. So this is going to happen when renewable comes, and it is a necessary, it's not an evil, there is a solution to it. Technological solutions available. And unfortunately, even in the world market, I did not see too much of movement in the harmonics area. So we must be very proud that an Indian company like Ensign is worked on this area, and there are a couple of more companies. I had a friend called Pradeep Pimple, no more that company exists. He is also no more. So he was the first man who designed an indigenous active harmonic filter to put into the system. And it is very profitable for the people who are in the steel business and other business who generate harmonics to put this. That is the reality. It is being put on the utility, but it's basically the people who are not utility, people who are the, I would say, production people who are in the area of steel or in the caustic soda, and all these people who generate harmonics have a real need to put this. How do we take that movement forward? We don't have a harmonic code in this country, and it's very essential now. Even homes generate harmonics. I saw what kind of harmonic loading was happening in a small 10 lakh consumers they handle in a franchise license in Mysore, and I saw it right at their system in Bangalore, and they are the one who are monitoring, studying, and saying that this is huge loss for the utilities. So this is virtual power, because to put up a brand new power plant, you add more carbon into the system. Withdrawing power bringing power into the system back without adding more capacity is very important. Zero carbon, and you can do it at, we had calculated 50 to 75 lakhs and even 1 crore per megawatt. So we are talking today of new power plants, even solar, 4-5 crores per megawatt. Here we are saying virtual power to retrieve back into the system using smart technology is only 1 crore per megawatt at times, and then that type of investment we are not making. So we need to look at this as a major subject today for which we are there. Another area is safety and security in that system, which also brings efficiency. Like today, all the switchgears and all the substations are using SF6, the gas. So gas insulated substations have come in. These questions have not been raised, and most of the places we have an environmental disaster waiting to happen. High voltage arcing, and then arcing multiple cycle, ultimately that gas is exposed to any operator or anybody going there. I tell you, it is worse than any other exposure. Even nuclear exposure is nothing in front of it. And this country does not again have a code for finding a way out for detection. I'm not talking about affecting. Prevention is better than cure. Gas leak detection system of world-class nature should be mandatory for a smart grid. And we have not discussed this in any forum. So this is the first time this is coming in front of you. Another area, these two areas I put. The third one, most of the times in India, we have a large country. We're working in remote access. We do online fault location. 100 kilometers away, something happens. 200 kilometers away, that's it. I'm talking small kilometers. 1,000 kilometers also it can happen. We have no remote management of the system. And remote monitoring happens. After the thing is done, it is like, it is the difference between Ayurveda and allopathy. I remember a famous Dr. Shah who did maximum operations, and the famous book by him in Bombay. He was a heart surgeon who did maximum operation, and he wrote a book called How to Avoid Invasive Surgery. And in that he wrote how to have your dincharya, ritucharya, how to do food management and all. Similar thing is going to happen. You cannot go and solve the grid problem after it is happening. You have to retrofit right today. It's on war footing that we need to work, because we only saw tripping 2012, where in that forum on 27th I was saying the grid will trip, and exactly tripped the way it did on 29th and 30th. And I'm saying now we had a pendulum then. The south was not connected. It was like this. Now we don't have a pendulum. Now it is like a snooker or a billiard system. It's like tuck, 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 tuck. And when it will fail, I tell you, it will fail together. And fail very massively. 4 days we will have a power cut. If we don't think, and we will leave it to God and destiny for all this grid management to happen. Sir, I'm telling you, it will happen in the same way, because technology is not there. We have only gone to the level of automation. We have not integrated IT, telecommunication, and grid management. No problem, sir. But I am telling you the truth. We're working with people who are doing that management. We're talking to them. Their lives is worse than air traffic control. I'm telling you, if we do not have any empathy for them, because at the end of the day, people want I remember, I'll name it, people wanted Suni to be sacked, Posoko. And I stood tooth and nail in inertia that it will not be done in this way. And ultimately, he was given more powers and an intelligent man. But the duress, people work under duress. Go to the load dispatch center. A day in the life of a load dispatch center is a must for every engineer to understand what happens. We have importance for air traffic control. We have no importance for our grid managers. I know. So I'm saying, I'm feeling a lot of empathy for what I'm saying. I feel their job is thankless, and I hope more engineers join in that area. In the future, engineers will not join in that area if we don't encourage them. So we have a danger here. So that also has to be looked at. So I just threw up a few points for us to think. I'm not saying that I'm not sounding like a disaster pundit. I'm just telling that be careful how the grid behaves. If you don't put technology into it, it's not very costly. It is the need not to do any more pilots. We have to make large-scale program access for smart gridding in this country. So I just threw up 3 or 4 points. There are many other areas, and smart meters is a very important area. We called in my book, Powering in Crisis, which I will give to people who have not received. Powering in Crisis, in that I wrote in 2005, when Montek Singh Ahluwalia launched it. That time I wrote about ADAM, Advanced Digital Automated Metering. That was already there. And I called it IMT, Intelligent Metering Technologies, because there was no word smart at a time. The new edition, which is launched about 2 months back, it has got ISMT, which is Intelligent Smart Metering Technologies. This was already discussed. A chapter full was written by me when I wrote Powering in Crisis. It is republished. And a lot of stalwarts are here. They will agree with what I'm talking. So smart meters is essential. And when we use the smart meter, the various points, distribution point, transmission point, you need to apply metering systems of the advanced kind everywhere, not only in the transmission system, but also in the distribution. Today, I think I tell you, even in a very advanced state like Maharashtra, I see mechanical meters still operating in homes. And it's so funny that if there are 200 flats or 500 flats, 300 flats have electronic meters, state-of-the-art digital meters. The rest still operate with old meters, and barely it changes. Still going on. So it is in the same system, in the same vicinity, in the same society, cooperative society, you have people who have the older meters, people who have newer meters. Are we even thinking of these things? Or are we even preparing our metering system and the metering suppliers for this? Or we are just telling them, we are making a tender and you just apply for this and do this, that's game is over. Then people go and research this area, they will understand how we are wasting our energy and resources, and how we are also cheating our citizens, because they probably think their bills are less, but actually they are getting into serious trouble at their own homes. Because even homes are generating harmonics with inverters. When you deny access, you end up pulling that harmonics in. Are we thinking of the solutions that we are going to do for our future homes? We are talking of smart cities, but are we doing this smart micromanagement of our things? We are not at all there, my friends. So today is a very important day. We have Mr. Murugeshan to educate us on these things and the other experts, and I leave this entire day for them. It's all yours, sir. Mr. Murugeshan, please give him a big hand.
Good afternoon, friends. This particular friends, before lunch, let me talk about maybe about 20 to 25 minutes regarding the issues on smart grid, then followed by about 15 to 20 questions, and many experts are sitting on this other side of this panel. So let me go through that a bit about history for the benefit of people to understand that it is not that smart grid has come today or yesterday, but it traveled, I think, at least for not less than 50 to 60 years. At the after the invention of DC, first transmission between mainland to Gotland in Sweden. HVDC system is also a part of smart grid. So let me go through that drivers for smart grid worldwide. And government plays a very important role in smart grid, because still it is not a business case that you invest something and you will get reasonable return on investment. So the government support is absolutely essential. So the governments are all over the world giving thrust on this, supporting the industries, utilities all world over. Of course, as I mentioned that smart grid did not come all of a sudden, but it was given a various names over a period of at least not less than 15 years. Of course, there are requirements. It is not that it gives the entire solution. Of course, lots of benefits are embedded, but we should tread with caution. When we talk about any technologies, the standards are the heart of the systems. Otherwise, all will work in silos. It is very expensive to integrate it. The standards plays complete connection role. So it's very, very important that the core of the system is standards. There are multiple standards available. It's not that the smart grid needs an invention to create a standards. Of course, to create smart grid framework, you need not less than 300 standards. It's not that one particular standard, it gives you a solution for smart grid. Let me come back. So in that case, you can see that the IEC, International Electrotechnical Commission, is truly an international standard, because all over the world participate in this standard framework. Of course, the United States stand apart, stating that we operate on our own. They have their own standard, that is ANSI or IEEE, whatever name we call. But thing is that they are a bit faster. So before IEC or anything comes, they are the people, very smart people, they bring up standards, technology and other things. Of course, IEC is a very old standards organization, more than 100 years old. We'll talk about primarily this IEC standard, because Indian standards primarily embrace this IEC standards, most of this electrical equipment. And when we talk about smart grid, interoperable is a major force. Unless otherwise a seamless flow of information and work interoperable, you cannot achieve smart grid framework. So the understanding the interoperable is a must. So everyone talks about in space, it will not work. And of course we'll come back to the status in Indian power systems. Where do we really stand? Everyone talks about smart grid. But what's the reality? How far you need to travel to see that at least the framework you reach? So hundreds of definition, nobody can give that. This is a definition of the smart grid. This is a glimpse of just a few things we collected it. And the smart grid delivers electricity from supplier to the consumer using digital technology to save energy, reduce cost, increase reliability. Friends, you can give any definition, but finally you come back to the only three things. One, you have to save energy, you have to reduce costs, and you have to increase the reliability. These are all the three things. You name any technology, any space you give that, finally it comes to only these three. Any of the things you do that, finally it comes to three things: saving energy, reducing cost, reliability. You name anything. And finally, friends, we used to show this about 4, 6, 7 years ago. That time people thought that smart grid is a solution for every problem. But things have slightly improved. It's no more that this is a story, but sense has prevailed that it is somewhere in between. It's not that it gives solution, but same time something is available. So it defined as a broad range of solutions and technologies that optimize the energy value chain. In the three things like save energy, reducing cost, reliability. These three things are put into this optimize the energy value chain, and still evolving. And now everyone knows that why smart grids, all such things can go through that. These are all one: pricing costs, pressure, efficiency, energy, consumer expectation, technology development. And the fundamental architecture of these networks has been developed in most of the country to meet the needs of large, predominantly carbon-based generation technologies. And more flexible transport of power is needed in response to new energy markets and energy trading, and to trend towards a location of bulk generation far from loads. And the solution should be scalable, increase capacity for power transfers, reduce energy losses, energy efficiency and security of the supply, and backwardly compatible to include the installed base. This is very important. We'll come back. Sorry, sir. 1 second. Go on there. And as I mentioned that standards are ideal instrument to achieve a number of objectives such as seamless interoperability. Friends, as I mentioned that to achieve this smart grid framework, to cover up entire aspects of smart grid stakeholders, you need to adopt approximately about 300 standards. You talk about conventional electrical equipments, whether energy meter or your RTUs or your protection relays or computer systems or meter and associated systems are your renewable